I'll talk about the UP Chief Minister
Yes,
also.
yes.
See, the Prime Minister, when it comes to governance, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, that is the mantra. There is no difference, no bhedbhav between any people of any religion, any caste. But when it comes to your own personal faith, Prime Minister has not been shy to express his faith, and that too in all detail. So we have seen Prime Minister spending a lot of time in Kedarnath. He has gone there, he has followed that tradition to its last mile, to its fullest. He had performed, that meditation in the Kedarnath cave. He goes to Ayodhya, he follows the tradition. He goes to any part. He went to Kathmandu at Pashupatinath. He followed the very same traditions.
Yes.
So when it comes to expression of personal faith, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is not shy, and that is what he has set in a new tradition in politics. Predecessors in the past might have been shy of having this public display of their faith. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is not, and therefore personal faith on one hand, and when it comes to governance, it is the different Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Yeah.
That is what I think the message Prime Minister wants to give, and it clearly resonates quite well with the people on the ground, because the common devotee who comes to Mahakala, who goes to Kashi Vishwanath, when he sees this picture, he has a clear sense of connect with the Prime Minister, that he too is following the very same traditions, he too is living the very same moments which we as a devotee live when we go to our religious places or we go to our tirthas.
And Pranshu, taking off from what you're saying, the identification that a common Indian is able to do with the Prime Minister, that this is how I worship my deity, this is how I connect to my deity, and if he's the Prime Minister, he's doing what he's supposed to do in terms of the infrastructure creation and development. The fact that the Prime Minister not only asserts his religious identity very proudly, but also he says that I derive my entire inspiration from the faith where I come from. Often it is said that if you're very religious, then can you be really secular, or can you be really, balanced in your approach when it comes to administrative tasks? Politicians of today's day and age, like a Yogi Adityanath or Prime Minister Narendra Modi, have exemplified in a departure from the past that you don't need to divorce your religion. You can be religious and you can also be an able administrator and popular with the masses.
Well, yes, Anusha, see, I think it is clearly an attempt at which BJP and the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the leaders you mentioned, they have been successful at defining what secularism is.
Yeah.
And clearly, they have departed from the past tradition of secularism, whereby the secularism meant that you can don in a skull cap, but you will never go to a temple in public glare. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi has turned over that tradition. For him, secularism is that I have pride in my religious belief. I will do it as an individual. I am of course occupying an office of importance, a government office. In discharge of my government duties, there is no discrimination. But for me, the secularism doesn't mean that I will not profess my faith, I will not display my faith, I'll not go to my deity's darbar. So I think in that sense, BJP, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, to be very particular, has clearly tried to redefine what secularism in independent India is.
What secularism in truly independent India is, and 75 years of Indian independence, and the change in the dynamics of the word secularism has never been so evident like it has been in the last 10 years. The dynamic shift in the consciousness of the people, in the political narrative and discourse, has been so stark that you cannot miss it. And it's a welcome change. There's a new awakening which is happening. These are cultural, this is a repository of our culture. These are faiths, these are traditions which are thousands of years old, filled with knowledge that should be protected and preserved, and that's exactly what's happening. Pranshu, coming to the state of Madhya Pradesh, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, Jyotiraditya Scindia, both of them are present. From the point of view of the state government and the kind of work that they have done in the last 5 years, when they go to the electorate, this of course is going to be one of the achievements that they would like to tell, that look, we have the blessings of the Prime Minister, we have the union government working with us, and we'd be able to do much more if we are elected back to power.
Well, whether this Mahakal corridor's inauguration will have a bearing on the elections which are clearly due, I think in November or December next year.
Yeah.
But the importance of Madhya Pradesh election, and at that point in time also states like Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh will go to polls. They become very important because, just months after these states go to polls, you will have the national elections, you will have the battle of 2024. Remember in 2018 December, BJP lost Chhattisgarh, BJP also lost Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Later on, in Madhya Pradesh, they were able to displace the Kamal Nath government, and Shivraj Chauhan again came as a chief minister. So yes, if you talk about the political sense, I'm very sure the BJP's top leadership clearly have that political calculations on their mind, that this year they are going to face the Gujarat and Himachal challenge, which might be easy, but the Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan clearly will not be easy in terms of the impact value. They will be more important, because immediately after these elections you will have the national battle of 2024. So in that sense, what Prime Minister says today in his public address here, and the inauguration of this grand corridor, these pictures, the BJP will surely hope that these pictures, the Prime Minister's utterance continues to resonate with the people of Madhya Pradesh for long, and maybe they also be of a political electoral help when it comes to elections later next year.
Well, Pranshu, as I close my edition here at 6:30 tonight, I want to understand from you, what has been the chatter on the streets? You must have spoken to many people living in Ujjain, in the nearby areas, at the temple complex. What are they telling you?
Well, they are clearly upbeat, and they do see a very promising feature. On an immediate level, they are happy that their city is getting such a grand corridor, which will not just be a place of religious worship, it will also be a picnic spot for them. People will come here, there will be evening gatherings, it will be a center of outing for them. In a longer term, they do feel that this will mean more devotees here, and for Ujjain, the Mahakal Temple is also the source of the biggest source of livelihood, biggest source of economy. So they do feel that in days to come, in years to come, as this corridor will get more fame, more name, more devotees will come, and more devotees coming to Ujjain will clearly mean more business and a bigger boost to economy. So in that sense, people of Ujjain are clearly quite happy.
Pranshu Mishra reporting from Ujjain, the Prime Minister, performing that puja, the visuals on the right-hand side of your screen, and that grand complex which is all set to be inaugurated by the Prime Minister himself. Shivani takes the coverage forward.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is unveiling and dedicating to the country another one of his dream projects, the redeveloped and refurbished, the stunning looking Sri Mahakal Lok project at the revered Mahakaleshwar Temple in Ujjain. This is the first phase of the 856 crore rupees temple corridor redevelopment project and will provide a big boost to tourism in the state. The corridor is over 900 meters in length and is dotted with 108 ornate sandstone columns in a row, which bear decorated Trishul design on top and many mudras of Lord Shiva. It has also gushing fountains surrounded by artistic sculptures of Lord Shiva and has as many as 108 illuminated murals that depict stories from Shiv Puran. This corridor adds to the series of transformations that prominent Indian temple sites have witnessed under Prime Minister Modi's watch in the last 8 years. The Prime Minister doesn't shy away from projecting his deep religiosity, and despite criticism, is not apologetic about putting the might of his leadership and government behind redevelopment, even reclaiming expansion of some of the most revered holy sites in India. He has often talked about the importance of such shrines in India's history and culture, but also economy. Is the Mahakal corridor another step in boosting India's cultural heritage? I'll take that to our special guest joining us in just a bit. But first, let me just take you through the vast work in redevelopment of some important shrines that has taken place in the last few years. These are all dream projects of the Prime Minister. Of course, from his own constituency, in December 2021, the Kashi Vishwanath corridor redevelopment was completed. Completely new look of the temple, the corridor, and even the ghats in Varanasi. June 2022, Kalika Mata Temple, the entire complex, the hilltop where it is based, was redeveloped. Now in October 2022, the Mahakal corridor, again, it is a vast project. The scale in itself is breathtaking. Now in December this year, the Kedarnath Shrine, which has already seen some refurbishment, the entire temple complex is being restored post the floods, and it is going to be unveiled soon. And in December 2023, the big project that everybody is waiting for, the Ayodhya Ram Temple, the Ram Lalla Temple, that entire temple complex is under development as we speak. So with this Mahakal corridor being unveiled, is this another step in boosting India's cultural heritage? That's the big question. Let me go, of course, to our guests also joining us. Uday Mahurkar is Information Commissioner of the Government of India and author of the book on Veer Savarkar. Ratan Sharda is RSS researcher and author. We'll also be joined by Hindol Sengupta, historian, with me. Uday Mahurkar, let me come to you first up. We've seen the visuals that are breathtaking, to say the least, of the Ujjain corridor, the Mahakal corridor. You have familiar links with Ujjain on your mother's side. How does it make you feel today when you see this redevelopment of one of the Jyotirlingas?
It is an absolutely emotional moment for me. I have been going to Ujjain since my childhood. As a child of 5 years, I have seen this temple umpteen times. I have offered my prayers umpteen times. And today when I see the transformation, it is unbelievable. And there is a history behind it. You know, in my case, my mother's ancestors owned about 34 villages around Ujjain city and lot of land in Ujjain town also. And there are two areas named after Bahadur Singh and Khushal Singh, Bahadurganj and Khushalpura, very close to the temple. And there is a Sati Mandir also of one of my mother's ancestors who committed Sati there. So I have an emotion, it's an emotional moment for me, there is no doubt. But then as a historian, I look at it in a much bigger way, you know. You see, Ujjain, Mahakal, Jyotirling is considered to be, according to our scriptures, one of the most sacred of the 12 Jyotirlings in the country. This temple was demolished first by Sultan Iltutmish, father of Razia Sultan, in 1234. Thereafter, it was rebuilt by Hindus, demolished. This continued for 500 years. What our ancestors have gone through, I think, this shows, you know, for 500 years, this temple was built and broken. In 1734, Bajirao Peshwa gave Ujjain as a Jagir to his commander Ranoji Scindia. And Ranoji Scindia and his Diwan Ramchandra Baba Suktankar rebuilt what you see today.
Udayji, we could hear you. I think we've lost your line, but I'll come back to you in just a bit. These are also live visuals of the Prime Minister now after offering the prayers inside the Mahakaleshwar Temple. He is obviously coming to look at the project, the redevelopment of the corridor with the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh there and with many of the seers associated with the Jyotirlingas and of course with the Ujjain Jyotirlinga. Let me also bring in Ratan Sharda. Ratan Sharda, most importantly, the scale at which Prime Minister Narendra Modi does his work is his greatest strength and trademark. You know, the kind of complexes we have seen being refurbished and unveiled under him, I don't think many could have imagined that this was possible in India.
Shivani, as we all know, Mr. Narendra Modi is a visionary. He goes for things which seem impossible for others. And this particular temple, I have gone to this temple multiple times. Every time there is a kind of palpitation when you try to get to have a darshan. And this is true of nearly most of our pilgrim centers.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in the rise of secularism, we have allowed these temples to go seed into worse kind of situation where we prided ourselves in the filthiness and the dirt and the crowds in the temples. But Modi just changed all that. That is one very important point, because these are civilizational signposts. These are not just temples for Hindus. For example, how many of us know that Ujjain was considered as the zero meridian of the world, which was in the Surya Siddhanta 1000 years back.
Ratan Sharda, can I just request you to just hold your thought? We just want to dip into the Prime Minister. I think he's inaugurating the redeveloped corridor now. All right, those were the shlokas being sung with many of the seers there as the Prime Minister pressed the button and then inaugurated the redeveloped corridor, the Mahakal Lok corridor, or the Mahakal Lok as you can call it. And you look at these pictures and they're absolutely breathtaking. They do reinvigorate your faith in Indian civilizational heritage and culture, but they also remind you of the care that you need to take of these sites, because these are not just religious sites. Ratan Sharda, sorry, I had to cut you short there. Please go ahead, then I'll go across to Hindol as well.
Yeah, so Shivani, thanks. I was trying to share the fact that actually what's the importance of Mahakal Temple? It is the zero meridian as per Surya Siddhant written more than 1,000 years back, and our time calculation or entire astronomy dependent on the zero meridian as defined by our Hindu ancestors. So I always say that our point of view depends on our viewpoint depends on the standpoint. So if you follow the Greenwich time and a Greenwich zero meridian, you look at India from an outsider's perspective. But when you look at India from the zero meridian of Ujjain, your viewpoint changes. So the importance of Mahakal is it is the center of the zero meridian of our entire civilizational science, and that is why this is much more important than any other Jyotirling as far as our knowledge system is concerned. And this is what is very important. And as I said, the way we have been letting our pilgrim centers go to seed in the guise of secularism and not giving importance to what is our rightful heritage, this is a huge change. If you remember the Kumbh Mela, how people have gone to Kumbh Mela in large numbers last time, how Kashi Vishwanath pilgrims are going happily. Earlier there used to be some kind of tentativeness. How Ujjain, where I have gone at least 4 times and had the darshan every time, it was a huge project to go get the right people. Your heart would palpitate in the suffocating environment, and now suddenly finds us in a grand presence of Bhagwan Mahakal. And that is the achievement that I must congratulate the Madhya Pradesh government and of course our respect to Prime Minister Modi. They have seen to it that we go back to our roots, we understand our heritage and we take pride in our heritage. So this is the very significant moment in the history of independent India.
We are seeing also traditional Indian dances being represented there as the Prime Minister is taking a walk around the redeveloped project. And this is actually just phase 1. There's going to be a phase 2 coming in, which, you know, one can only wonder what phase 2 will be like. But I want to take ahead what Ratan Sharda mentioned to Hindol also. You know, Hindol, India is a deeply religious people, but our religious sites have been long neglected. With this kind of focus on redeveloping or developing temples as full complexes, it will breed a mindset of building and preserving our heritage. And I disagree with Ratan Sharda only to the extent that it's not just politics. I think the people, the population of India and the Hindu population of India will have to take responsibility for the fact that they had become very used to the filth surrounding our religious sites. That blame cannot be shirked away because we had become used to it. But I think that mindset is going to be changed when you can breathe at these sites and sit and have a moment to yourself and enjoy the beauty of these sites.
That's one way of looking at it, of course. And remember, the other way of looking at it also is that these are not just religious sites. Remember, Ujjain is one of the great mathematical centers of the ancient world. Bhaskar, who really gave us the decimal system, where was he doing his work? At the great mathematical center in Ujjain. Where was Brahmagupta doing his work? In Ujjain. So a lot of what we know of modern mathematics comes from this place in Ujjain. And it was all connected to Ujjain's great mathematical centers, its astronomical centers, and its understanding of time. The Indian understanding and the mathematical knowledge of time comes from Ujjain. But not just that. Where does Kalidasa come from? Ujjain. Where did King Vikramaditya build his great centers of learning? Ujjain. So we have to stop compartmentalizing these things. In Indian civilization, what we today describe as religiosity or religion or spirituality was deeply intertwined with scientific understanding and knowledge and a scientific way of looking at the world. And Ujjain is one of the greatest examples of these two things coming together, spirituality and scientific way of looking at the world. That's why Ujjain is a deeply important place. It's very sad that in modern India, this has not been understood. I do hope and pray that this is a new beginning for Ujjain and the world gets to know why it is such an important site. Like I said, it is a site not just for deep religiosity, but it's also one of the great mathematical and scientific centers of the ancient world.
And what redeveloping these sites does is actually bring forth that history of India to the commoner of the country today. And I don't want to touch that, hot potato today of how Indian education system really doesn't tell its young kids and its young minds of what India's true history. We'll leave that for another day. But I believe Uday Mahurkarji is back with us. Sir, we could hear you till as long as you were speaking the last time. Please continue. You were talking to us about the history of how even Ujjain was sought to be brought down by invaders.
I was telling you, Shivani, I was, this is an emotional moment for me particularly, because my mother belonged to Ujjain, and there are areas named after her ancestors very close to the temple. There were 34 villages owned by her family around Ujjain, and there is a Sati Mandir also very close to it. But more than that, you see, we have to look at the history. Mahakal Jyotirling, according to our scriptures, is the most sacred Jyotirling of all the 12 other, amongst all the 12 other Jyotirlings. It was first demolished by Iltutmish, Sultan Iltutmish in 1234. Iltutmish, I may share here, was the father of Razia Sultan. And thereafter, for 500 years, Hindus would construct the temple, it would get demolished. This cycle continued for 500 years till Ranuji Scindia, the ancestor of the present Golya dynasty, was given Ujjain as a Jagir by Bajirao Peshwa in 1730. In 734, he and his Diwan Ramchandra Babak Sukhtankar, again cut ho gaya abhi, फिर से cut ho.
Hear you. Udayji, I can hear you. Please continue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So in 1734, Ranuji Scindia and his Diwan Ramchandra Baba Sukhtankar, they rebuilt this temple. They did the Jeernoddhar of this temple and all the temples in the area. So after that, this is the biggest event. So this is the second Jeernoddhar of Mahakaleshwar Temple in the last 1000 years. That is the true significance of today's event.
Right.
More, you see, for the last 60-70 years, we have been brought up on a brand of secularism, which meant Hindu-Muslim unity at Hindu cost. This was thrust upon the country by the rulers who came down to rule the country after 1947. So this is a phase of national reawakening. You see, the inauguration of Kashi corridor, of Mahakaleshwar Temple at Pavagadh in Gujarat. Today, the Mahakal corridor. This is part of the process of national reawakening, which has begun in 2014. This process should have begun soon after independence, because saints like Vivekanand, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, Maharishi Aurobindo, Swami Paramanandaji of Bharat Seva Ashram Sangh, such saints had prepared ground. But Nathuram Godse unfortunately killed Gandhiji, which was used as an opportunity by people who were not rooted in Indian culture, or who had an agenda against the Hindu culture. They took over and they thrust upon this country a brand of secularism, which was very one-sided, which was very pro-minority, pro-Muslim. So today is an event of great significance. More, you see, the kind of Mr. Modi, with today's event, Mr. Modi emerges as a great symbol of revival of Bharatiya culture, and it has a unique theme. What he does in Devghar, he has done in Varanasi, he brings culture, religion and economy together. So this place is just not a place for pilgrimage, it is also a place for tourists who are not so much into Hinduism to go and see.
Right.
And enjoy.
Absolutely. The impact that this will have
model
on economy and on tourism in Ujjain or of the entire state of Madhya Pradesh cannot be overstated, because it's not just about religious tourism, it's also about, people coming and trying and understand the history of the city itself. as my guests have very prominently elaborated the significance of Ujjain and not just of Mahakaleshwar Temple. Ratan Sharda, you want to come in here? Of course, economy is very deeply tied to all the efforts that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is making. And we see efforts to kind of criticize his deep religiosity or the fact that as a PM, he participates in such events or throws his weight around it. But it hasn't fazed him at all.
See, we look at all these religious symbols and all these religious places with a lot of devotion, a lot of sense of bhakti. But the fact remains that India's tourism, right from the time immemorial, revolved around dharmic yatras, dharmic pilgrims, when people would go all over India, from people from south to the north, from north to the south, from one corner of Gujarat to another corner of Assam. So this was sustaining not just economies, but also the national integration. So these multiple points of national integration show that our Hindu culture is the life force of this nation. Without exaggerating, without making it communal, it is our culture. It is a geopolitical truth that comes out through these pilgrimages. So to make them great, to make them a place where you would like to go and you feel the devotion seeping in your veins, rather than you go for a yatra, when you reach there, you suddenly are anxious about how to close that particular yatra. So this is why it is very important that all these places get the historical importance. As I already explained, that this particular Mahakaleshwar temple has a huge scientific value. So our Tirth Yatras are not just religious issues. They also are tied, very, very, very importantly, tied down to our knowledge system. As you know, Ujjain also has had this observatory, and Raja Bhoj, we know they're important. If you go to another Shiva temple in Bhopal, it has got architectural drawings drawn on the rocks. So this wonderful heritage that we have, which combines our knowledge with spirituality, is the unique feature of Bharat. Right. And that is why these needs to be revived and these needs to be preserved and nurtured, so our culture becomes live and our people understand the importance of this underlying unity. And the only place where you find spirituality, not going against religion, but religion, spirituality and science, which is the biggest achievement of the civilization, that for us, our religion, our spirituality doesn't clash with the science. But as more and more research takes place, more closer we come to spirituality, as many scientists have found. And this particular aspect of Mahakal cannot be, stressed more. Right. Of course, all other centers also need to be revived. So we go to those places and understand the grandness of our own civilization, our
Absolutely.
nation.
I think this is a great opportunity to spread those messages. And I'm certain that the Prime Minister is going to be doing that when he also addresses a rally of sorts after the inauguration and the dedication of this corridor to the public and the country at large. Hindol, do you also agree with what Uday Moharkar is saying, that this is a national reawakening? Can we look at these events as national reawakening, even if we look at all the instances of shrine redevelopments that I have also mentioned and our guests have also mentioned? Is it that, or is it, just getting in touch once again for our newer generation, our younger generation, with our ancient civilization? Hindol, can you unmute yourself, please?
Sorry, I was muted. It's obviously not either or, right? It's a combination of two things. Also, I think we need to take this into a historical perspective. Post-colonial countries go through these entire phases where they re-look at what makes them unique. And certainly, Ujjain is something that makes us very unique. It's a unique site in even the ancient world and the history of the ancient world. So this process, which is now firmly underway, and I would not say that bits and pieces of this process hasn't happened before, it has, but I think firmly we are now in a process where we are re-looking at our own history and tradition. What will come out of this is the following. We will get a deeper understanding of who we really are. And this is particularly important because India is now the 5th largest economy in the world. It will, in the next 20 to 30 years, become the 3rd largest economy in the world. It needs to have a firm sense of who it is. No nation historically has ever risen without a strong understanding of what makes them unique. The British had their civilizational, their civilizing mission and the empire. The Americans had their American exceptionalism. And the Chinese have their entire, so they want to erase 100 years of humiliation, so to speak. Each nation which has ever risen, Shivani, has had a unique reason that they've told themselves and told the world. India must find its own reason, and that reason will come from its unique civilization. And Ujjain, as a great site of ancient learning and a great site of ancient science, is one of the great pillars on which our understanding of ourselves has to be based, and this is vital for rising India.
Absolutely. So you're saying this is just an essential process, a phase that a formerly colonialized country needs to go through, and that's, I think, what all of our guests are hinting at. This was a process that should have ideally happened right after independence was declared, right after 1947, but it didn't. Barring Somnath, which was reclaimed and refurbished, we didn't quite see this taking place across our other centers of knowledge, of Indian tradition, ancient history, and of course of religiosity. Udayji, do you believe that secularism that you're talking about, the secularism which was twisted in India, which came at the cost of the majority sentiments and majority hopes and culture, do you believe the resistance to that form of secularism is slowly but surely being brought down, brick by brick, in the wall?
No, it is being replaced by true secularism. So what we witnessed so far was secularism loaded in favor of minority community. You see, you have to understand the history. Muslim rulers, they demolished hundreds, thousands of temples during the medieval period. Thereafter, a section of Muslim forced partition on this country. So after that, the Congress model of Hindu unity at Hindu cost should have stopped. So, but that model continued after independence because Gandhiji was killed by Nathuram Godse. So, you see, what I want to say is that you have to delink the Muslim leadership from Muslim population. Common Muslims are willing to understand these things. But the Congress encouraged a set of leaders who believed in pan-Islamism, who thrust upon this country a one-sided model of secularism, and now it's a very good augury that we are coming out of it. So what now we are witnessing, you see, I don't support people who are saying that we want all such places back, maybe in thousands or hundreds. But then say take a Places of Worship Act. Now, Places of Worship Act it's a flawed act. FLAWED. It's a flawed act, And, when you bring such an act, then you should still consider, Somnath, Ayodhya, of course, you have got it. Kashi and Mathura should have been covered under the act. They should have been not part of this act.
Right.
So, point is that this act was also enacted in the same atmosphere. So I am not at all in support of people who want all such places back.
Right.
But then at least some of them, which are symbols of Hindu culture and tradition and Hindu beliefs, should have come back to Hindus, Why they haven't?
Yeah, it was made a matter of conflict when it needn't have been a conflict.
Pardon?
I'm saying it was made a matter of conflict when it needn't have been a matter of conflict.
Absolutely. And basically, you see, after independence, if you look at history and if you look at reports after independence, Muslims were willing to hand over most of these places back to us. Out of a sense of feeling that, look here, Pakistan has happened because of our actions, and now Hindus, we have to live here and we should be respectful to the Hindu sentiment. But the Congress acted otherwise. And probably if the Congress had not done so, Hindu and Muslims would have been living much closer today, I believe so.
So you believe that wedge of this pseudo-secularism actually has divided the communities more than it has united, and we all know that we still talk about how even the upliftment of the Muslim community has not really happened by quote-unquote secular parties, and Muslim leaders and communities themselves mention this, that they've really only been used as a vote bank. It hasn't really helped them in their development.
Shivani,
yes.
Shivani, just see the stand which the All India Muslim Personal Law Board has taken in the court. It says, it is telling the court that if you allow any freedom with the Places of Worship Act, there will be communal conflict in the country. There will be, communal peace will be disturbed. Instead of that, they should have been saying that, look here, we are prepared to give you back these 5 places. And that would have been, the Hindu community is very large-hearted, very kind. It would have responded in equal measure.
Yes,
but
I
here
think,
still there is an attempt
the sword of
that
communal strife and communal writing, you would remember it was also mentioned when the Ayodhya verdict was being worked upon and when the verdict was delivered. So, there are enough people in the country who will hold that sword on the head of the country at the drop of the hat. So I think that's what I'm getting at, that maybe the relevance of such elements is decreasing. Ratan Sharda, I don't want to go completely, away from the occasion that we're celebrating, which is the Mahakal corridor unveiling. But do you believe that the resistance to how Narendra Modi has put his might behind such projects is diminishing and has diminishing returns, because the public is not seeing them as communal actions? The public is only seeing them and rewarding Prime Minister Narendra Modi, because this is truly about ancient Indian history.
Exactly, Shivani. I do not understand why doing something good for the Hindus becomes anti-secular. It becomes communal. I simply beats me. The very first renovation that we are very proud of, the Somnath Temple, as the history tells you, Mr. Nehru was very, very upset. In fact, Dr. Rajendra Prasad had to pay a very heavy price for it. Sardar Patel had to pay a very heavy price for it. But for Kanhaiyalal Manikal Munshi, this would not have happened. So why this allergy to the pride of our culture just because it is Hindu? That is slowly being defeated. That whole idea that if you are a secular country, you have to be anti-Hindu, that itself beats everybody. And I think the slowly realization that has come in, and the way Modi ji has gone ahead, that you need not be anti anybody just because you're doing something for the Hindu civilization.
Right.
If we understand this, all this unnecessary communal conflict, all this unnecessary heated debates will die down. Every step that he takes, is it not to be necessarily taken? You can be pro-Hindu, you can be secular, just as you can be equal, giving respect to all the religions equally. Have we not renovated the Muslim places of worship in various places in India? Have we not given due place to these places? They have been much better renovated by ASI than our Hindu temples. So now the time that Modi ji has given this particular point, highlighted this point, we need to respect that we are secular because Hindus are secular. We are secular because we respect our religions. Our secularism doesn't stem from the Western idea of being an irreligious state, right, or separation of state and the religion. Because for us, the civilization is beyond religion, it is cultural, and we respect all religions. This particular speciality of the Hindu, of the Indian brand, of Bharatiya brand of secularism has to be understood. I'm using secularism, the word, because that is popular, or I would simply call it Sarva Dharma Sambhav. If we take into account, why should any action for the betterment of Hindus should be treated as majoritarian or should be treated as anti other people? This simply beats me. This Nehruvian thought has been quietly buried by Mr. Modi. And if you see, the renovation of Kashi was much more difficult. There was no space. He got so much of abuse for creating space by taking actions which are very harsh. So that ultimately the Kashi should survive. Kashi should not simply see to a level where only locals live, and our grand oldest city in the world, the oldest civilizational sign of our nation, should simply go to a level where people would avoid going there. That is the importance. Yeah. And that's why every renovation, every resurrection, and every kind of reawakening is very important, because an awakened nation which respects its history, its culture, that survives, that thrives. People who actually hate their civilization, have inferiority complex about the civilization, they will never prosper, they will never succeed. That is why this particular period in India's history is very, very important. It's a historic moment that we are seeing. It's a historic period we are living in. We never believed that the 70 years of slavish mentality, colonial mindset will change. It has changed for the better, and we are much wiser, much better, much more proud. We have found our place even in the Committee of Nations, because we now today are proud of our culture.
Right. I think the pride is an important aspect you mentioned. And Hindol, when I look at these visuals, I do want to say that, there is a lot of us who would visit these sites, would obviously lament at the condition of a lot of these very holy, revered sites. And I mean, the Kashi Dham was one of those was one of those examples. And there are countless such religious sites where, you know, we don't look, we're very devout, but we don't look at preserving these places, whether it's because of, you know, being under slavery for 800 years, or I don't know what has been the mindset. We're very clean people in our houses, but we didn't pay much attention to cleanliness even when it came to religious sites. I think that mentality or that vicious cycle needs to be broken. And with the inaugurations of such grand complexes, these are comparable to complexes anywhere in a successful European country or the Americas. There's a sense of pride that will come in the younger generation. Hindol.
I completely agree with you. You know, I mentioned the shambles in which Kashi Vishwanath was several years ago in 2015 when I wrote Being Hindu. And of course, a lot of people criticized that. It was appalling the way it had been, you know, the sheer disrepair in which Kashi Vishwanath was absolutely appalling, and therefore it was very, very necessary to change all that. You know, we have got accustomed to a povertarian mindset. You know, there's a certain element of poverty in everything that we do, but we are no longer such a terribly poor country. We cannot at one hand aspire to be shoulder to shoulder with the best in the world, and at the same time treat our architectural or religious heritage sites in such an appalling manner. Let me give you an example. You know, a lot of people, especially on Twitter, which is where all this shouting happens, constantly say that all these great things that other people took away, including colonial nations took away from us, must be brought back. Do we even have the museums to keep those things, right? If those things came back, our appalling National Museum wouldn't be able to keep them. So, you know, it is high time that we completely rejuvenate all of this. All our heritage sites need to be rejuvenated. All our temples need to be cleaned up. They need to be rejuvenated. I was recently at Mahakal, and you know, Mahakal actually is relatively better off than many other sites. I was recently at Ananta Padmanabha Swami, where they still have a tradition of having the, you know, ancient dance traditions within the temple complex. This is how temple complex used to be. They were great sites of culture. They were great sites of, you know, economics. All of this has been forgotten. They've been forgotten because they're in such disrepair. When we transform these sites, when we rejuvenate them, all of this will come back. Just one word of caution. Please, for God's sake, do not rejuvenate anything by destroying the ancient, you know, texture, fabric, and the architecture and putting horrible plaster of Paris on it. You know, the modern Indian architecture is really appalling. So we have great sites, ancient sites. I think the Honorable Prime Minister has made a great journey in rejuvenating them. The best minds in India should work in rebuilding and reconstructing and preserving and conserving these sites so that the whole world can see what the Indian civilization was all about.
So Hindol, since you bring that up, you've seen visuals of the Mahakal corridor, right? Do you believe that this is just some cheap copy, we are trying to ape someone, or do you believe this corridor has indeed managed to preserve our heritage?
It's not, and that's why I'm very happy about what happened in Kashi and what's happened in Mahakal also. And this is how the way it should be. You know, there is also a great Shankara statue now, and there is a Ramanuja statue now, which are also really lovely. I just fear that, you know, sometimes we, you know, fall into this trap of trying to, you know, modernize things.
Yes.
These places don't need to be modernized in that way. They need to be preserved, and an integration of all facilities need to be made within, while keeping intact the ancientness of these places.
Right, absolutely. I'm a firm believer that, you know, when you go to such sites, you need to be able to experience peace. And for whatever reason, in many of our Hindu religious sites, it is such dhakka-mukhi and bheed-bhad that you don't really experience a lot of peace that you should ideally be experiencing when you're making this journey and pilgrimage, and when you're sitting there and standing there and doing your aarti, etc. So I think as a people and as a population, we need to bring in that mindset that these cannot be places where we're just shoulder to shoulder and jostling with people. And that is why I believe the Kashi corridor or the Mahakal corridor, Kalita Ma corridor, you know, just openness and space gives you that sense of peace and calm which these sites need, given that they are home to or host to lakhs of people around the year. And they're going to be, of course, attracting international travelers as well, who have always been, through history, very curious about India and its ancient culture. And Udayji, at this Mahakal corridor, this is just phase one, that ancient culture and tradition are historical figures, ancient figures have been very truly commemorated. There are those 108 murals that are depicting scenes from Shiv Puran. So, you know, this amalgamation of the ancient with the modern, as far as the facilities are concerned, it's really Narendra Modi's trademark. He's delivered us already, at least in Kashi and in Mahakal, and then some of the smaller centers. We're going to see a refurbished Kedarnath very soon, and then, of course, the Ram Temple in Ayodhya. But what do you think makes him so different in this regard? Where does the vision come from? Udayji.
No. You see, he is not brought up in the atmosphere which we saw in the first 60, 70 years, you know. He is brought up in RSS tradition. He himself has been a very devout person, and his knowledge of history also has been quite good. I have known him for the last 35 years, you know. And you see, the best part is the way he has brought culture, religion and economy together, one. Secondly, you know, he is not using it to, there is nothing communal about it. The way he speaks, the way he spoke at Pavagad last month or at Kashi corridor, you know, his idea is to use them as symbols to bring the country together. There is nothing anti-Muslim about them. So that is a very big thing, what he is doing, you know. He is setting a platform where India becomes one and divisive forces are defeated. So that's a very positive thing, I think. And today, as I said, it's a very big development for Indian culture, for the nation, and for its pride, which was being, in a way, trampled upon, you know.
So, Udayji, do you believe that Mr. Modi, Prime Minister Modi is very aware of the role and the legacy he wants to leave behind? And that is why he's able to have that level of commitment?
Absolutely. No. You see, best part is that he doesn't allow it to divide people. The idiom he uses is an idiom which unites the nation. You see, and then his vision. You see, in Gujarat also, all the government guest houses, the rooms were renamed. And they were renamed after local deities, local rivers, local mountains. So he is a great, you know, he has evolved in a new model of revival of our culture.
And having pride.
Where he has his own way of changing nomenclatures, which is done in a way where it connects with our history, with our culture, with our religion.
Right.
And mind you, one more thing. He has done it in Gujarat, he did it with the Muslim place also. There is a place called Sarkhej in Gujarat, which is wholly associated with Muslim culture. He worked for that also.
Right.
So he has worked for Sufi shrines also, you know.
Absolutely. I think I see Narendra Modi on the dais now with Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan also. I do want to thank all of our guests for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking to all of you about the Mahakal corridor and its significance. I think it's best we slip into a short break right now, because we will be back with the Prime Minister's speech very soon on this momentous occasion of the redevelopment of the Mahakal Lok. Stay with us.
नेता कहूंगा उनको, जिसमें पूरे विश्व को उनसे बहुत प्रेरणा मिल रही है। उनके नेतृत्व से ये कुछ ही समझ लीजिए वर्ष में, 1-1.5 वर्ष में ही पूरा जीर्णोद्धार किया महाकाल नगरी उज्जैन का, और उसके बाद महाकाल लोक का लोकार्पण भी तभी करेंगे प्रधानमंत्री जी।
तो कुछ स्पेशल तैयारी की है आपने उनसे मिलने के लिए? इज देयर अ गिफ्ट आर यू प्लानिंग टू टेक?
साहब हमारा गाना सुनते हैं और साहब की मुस्कान ही मेरे लिए उपहार है। देखिए, जीवन तो हमें बहुतों को मिलता है, लेकिन लक्ष्य किसी किसी को मिलता है। परिश्रम करके, बहुत विषमताएं देखकर, कष्ट झेल कर अपने आप को उन्होंने एक तरह से, जैसे एनलाइटनिंग वाली बात होती है, एनलाइटनमेंट होता है, जिसको हम अवलोकन बोलते हैं, वो उनके अंदर आया है। यदि मंच पर वो मुस्का भी दिए तो हो गया काम, सबसे बड़ा उपहार है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is slated to inaugurate the first phase of the 856 crore rupees Mahakaleshwar Temple Corridor Development Project in Madhya Pradesh today. Now, in a bid to boost tourism in the city of Ujjain, the Prime Minister is on a 3-day visit to Madhya Pradesh. The new Mahakal corridor measures over 900 meters in length. It is dotted with 108 ornate sandstone columns in a row bearing decorative Trishul designs on top and mudras of Lord Shiva on its faces. Mahakal Lok development project also includes a midway zone, a park, among other amenities. In fact, remember, the Ujjain Mahakaleshwar Temple is one amongst the 12 Jyotirlingas across the country and has pilgrims flocking to worship throughout the year.
जो मंदिर का एरिया है, मंदिर परिसर जो केवल 2 हेक्टेयर का होता था, इन दोनों फेजेस के बाद में वो एरिया बढ़कर लगभग 47 हेक्टेयर का होने जा रहा है।
So this is a very huge project. In fact, I have seen it, and it is simply narrating, so many tales of Lord Shiva. So these murals. From where you have got these artists?
Actually, the artists are from Rajasthan, and all the stories have been taken from Shiv Puran. So, Shiv Puran is our main reference book from which we have got all the stories, and the stone we have used has come from Bansi Paharpur.
That is Rajasthan.
That is Rajasthan. Yeah. Yes. ये केवल एक कॉरिडोर नहीं है, ये पूरा का पूरा एक कॉम्प्लेक्स है जिसमें न केवल शिव पुराण के जैसे मैंने बताया कि म्यूरल्स हैं, और इसके अलावा शिव पुराण से जुड़ी हुई दूसरी जो कहानियां हैं, शिव प्रसंग और शिव के जीवन से जुड़े हुए जो दूसरे उनके अवतार हैं, उन सभी को यहाँ पर अलग अलग भागों में, कुछ पत्थर की मूर्तियों से, कुछ FRP की मूर्तियों से, कुछ अलग आर्ट फॉर्म्स में दिखाया गया है। और जैसा आपने बताया कि शिव विवाह का एक 111 फीट लंबा म्यूरल है, जो मुझे लगता है कि सबसे बड़ा एकाकी जो है म्यूरल होगा जिससे शिव विवाह प्रदर्शित हो रहा है। और इन सभी की शोभा बढ़ाता हुआ साथ में जो रुद्र सागर है, जो पहले एक सीवर से भरा हुआ एक तालाब हुआ करता था, उसके पौराणिक महत्व को देखते हुए, और माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी ने भी यही आदेश दिए थे कि इसका हम लोगों को बहुत विशेष ध्यान रखना है। और हमारे प्रयासों का परिणाम है कि आज न केवल इसमें साफ जल है, बल्कि हम लोगों ने शिप्रा से, पाइपलाइन से इसको कनेक्ट भी कर दिया, जिससे 12 महीने इसमें साफ पानी रहा करेगा।
Let me take this across to my colleague Pranshu Mishra, who's joining us live from Ujjain. Pranshu, we're talking about the redevelopment of this mega corridor. Of course, this is a major push by the BJP government also, the grand opening that everybody has been standing by. All that you are picking up from on ground. Just please take our viewers through it.
Yes, that's right. We have already shown our viewers the grand pictures of the broad pathway, the redeveloped Rudra Sagar, and beyond, before that, the Lotus Lake. Now what we are going to show our viewers is exactly the pictures where the Prime Minister would be arriving. Now this is the pathway, all decked up with beautiful flowers out here. This is the pathway from where the Prime Minister's cavalcade would be coming, or maybe Prime Minister chooses to drop his vehicle below and then take these footsteps coming here right up to the main gate of the Mahakaleshwar Temple. And this is, I'll ask my camera person to show you. This is the entrance of the Mahakal Temple, and from here the Prime Minister would be going inside. This is the first glimpses of the Mahakal Temple, the corridor in itself, which is leads to the Mahakal Temple. So the first pictures of the grand Mahakal Temple, and this is the area which is has been given a entire fresh look. Towards my right is the Grand Museum, the Mahakal Museum. And as I move forward, where of course the last minute finishing touches are going on, this is the area where Prime Minister would be spending around more than an hour. And in front of me you see this Mahakal Temple. So it is the Grand Mahakal Temple who is considered to be the custodian of this entire place. Someone who is which is a unique place out here, the Jyotirling, that is south facing Jyotirling, custodian of both life and death. and this is the main temple where you see the saffron flag flying in the pink stone temple. This is the Mahakal temple, and you see the officers out here doing the final minute preparation. So clearly we have got access, we have managed access to this particular spot where Prime Minister would be coming just few hours from now, and very soon SPG would be taking up this entire area, would be asking us to leave. But these are the final pictures of how the preparation is going on, and what is it is a sense, a feeling of divinity, a feeling.
Thanks a lot for staying with us. We're getting you live coverage from Ujjain, where the Prime Minister has just dedicated the newly refurbished and developed Mahakaleshwar Temple complex to the country. You can see Kailash Kher there. He's unveiling the anthem for Mahakal Lok. Let's listen.
जी जय श्री महाकाल। ऐ मेरे उज्जैन वासियों, मैं नमन करता हूं इस पावन धरा को। और आज देवगण अवलोकन कर रहे हैं देवलोक से कि वाह भैया वाह, उज्जैन जो पुरातन नगरी है, जो सनातन नगरी है, उस पावन नगरी में ये कौन है जो शिव के वरद पुत्र ऐसा कुछ कर रहे हैं जो बहुत ऐतिहासिक है। उस ऐतिहासिक को करने के लिए एक ऐसा तपस्वी, एक ऐसा अवधूत पृथ्वी पर भेजा गया है जिसका नाम है नरों में इंद्र, नरेंद्र मोदी। बारंबार नमन है। संगीत और आध्यात्म को एक साथ लाना ये ख्वाब था हम लोगों के लिए। संतों को, संगीत को और मंदिरों को, प्रांगणों को, आध्यात्म को इकट्ठा कर देना ये हम लोगों के लिए कल्पना थी। अब मूर्त हो रहा है। मैं उनको नमन करते हुए मंचासीन जितने भी महामूर्तियां बैठी हैं उनको भी नमन करता हूं। हमारे बहुत ही कर्मठ और आदरणीय मुख्यमंत्री मध्य प्रदेश शिवराज सिंह चौहान, उनको भी बारंबार धन्यवाद और शुभकामनाएं। श्री महाकाल लोक उज्जैन, ये समझ लीजिए इस पृथ्वी पर कुछ ऐसी नगरी बसी जो सप्त ऋषियों ने बसाई थी, उनमें से एक है। ऊपर से राजाओं के राजा मेरे महाकाल, मेरे महादेव सबको आशीर्वाद दे रहे हैं। और मेरी दृष्टि में तो साहब इस वक्त मेरे महादेव बैठे हैं ये जन समूह बन।
We'll take you back across to Ujjain, but for now let me also go across to my colleague Pranshu Mishra, who's actually in the city and has been taking a sense of the refurbishment and the redevelopment of this temple complex. Pranshu, what does the Madhya Pradesh government tell you? What do they feel is going to be the impact of the redeveloped corridor here? In terms of the footfall, in terms of the facilities and just the temple economy in Ujjain?
Yes, you know, Madhya Pradesh is already a big destination when it comes to the tourism potential, and it is a state that already has a lot of footfall as far as tourists are concerned. But now here the project basically is to revive the religious tourism sector as well, and Ujjain of course becomes the epicenter of that entire effort. With the fact that, you know, this is going to be the biggest corridor at any temple. Kashi Vishwanath corridor temple premises is around 300 meters. Mahakal temple corridor or the Mahakal Lok corridor, that is in its first phase is around 900 meters long, so almost a kilometer long corridor, 3 times more as compared to the Kashi Vishwanath corridor complex area. So in that sense, what the government here intends is or hopes is that in days to come this corridor will mean the year-round footfall of pilgrims in large numbers to this particular spot.
Okay. Pranshu, can I request you to just hang on with us, because, you know, earlier when we cut live to Kailash Kher, he had ended his performance, but I just want to play a snippet out of the performance that he did. It is almost an anthem to Mahakal that he has unveiled today. Let's listen it. All right, so that is a snippet of the anthem that Kailash Kher has sung, and with that event has also been kick-started. You can see Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the dais. I believe the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister is currently speaking. Prancho, I want to come back to you. Just give me a sense of what people in the city of Ujjain had to say about, this focus that the ancient city is getting today, and what they feel the impact of this corridor is going to be for them.
Well, for the people of this ancient city, it's almost a new beginning, and for centuries and for thousands of years, there has been this strong belief that out of all the Jyotirlings, Ujjain occupies to be the place which is known, often referred to as the other Kashi. So one can clearly imagine and connect to the fact that in Hindu mythology, Ujjain has placed next to Kashi Vishwanath when it comes to be a Shaiv city, a place where Lord Shiva himself, reigns, and he is said to be the king of this place. Now, among all the Jyotirlings, we have often discussed this fact that how this Jyotirling has entirely different significance in terms that it is the only south-facing or the Dakshin-mukhi Shivling. It is the most fierce form of Lord Shiva whose incarnation is in Ujjain. So, for people of Ujjain, this new corridor means that the possibility or the hope that there would be a lot more tourists coming here, and it will now be an year-long feature. Generally, Ujjain has seen increased footfall when festivals takes place, when it is Mahashivratri or when the Singhas Mahakumbh takes place every 12 years. Ujjain has the Mahakumbh in 2028. Again, the Mahakumbh will take place in this city. But people do feel that now, that footfall, that possibility of religious tourism and business associated to it will not just be a periodical aspect, it will be a year-long aspect, and therefore people are grateful to Madhya Pradesh government's initiative, but more than that, to the larger vision of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And that vision has ensured that not only in states like Madhya Pradesh, you talk about Uttar Pradesh, you have seen Kashi Vishwanath corridor, we are seeing the ongoing work of the Grand Ram Temple in Ayodhya, we have seen that how in Uttarakhand, Kedarnath and Badrinath Dhams, they have been, renovated, and a lot of glory has been added to it. So it clearly means that attraction for people will clearly see these pictures out which have been played live on the TV, and then there would be a motivation to come here. And when people come here, it automatically means more business for the city. So in that sense, people of Ujjain are really happy. In day-to-day of their life, they get a place where they can go every evening, sit, have a leisure time, could do the darshan of the deities, and for millions and lakhs of people who will now come here over the days and years ahead, for them it will mean much more easier way to have a darshan of their deity, decongested pathways, more ample space to have sit down, interact, and just soak into the spirituality of this place. So in that sense, people of Ujjain are really happy, and they do have a lot of optimism about better livelihood, better prospects of growing economy in the region.
Prancho, you mentioned the Kashi Dham. I was lucky enough to be in Varanasi when the Prime Minister was inaugurating the completed phase of the Kashi Dham. And earlier I had seen pictures, but actually I felt when I visited the refurbished corridor, even in person, it was pretty grand, and actually it does take your breath away. The first few minutes. How did you feel when you visited the corridor? Because in visuals, especially the bird's eye view of the Mahakal corridor are absolutely stunning.
Well, yes, equally lucky like you to have witnessed also the Kashi Vishwanath corridor in its grand avatar now. And of course, coming to Ujjain yesterday evening, and when yesterday when I got that first opportunity to be here, it was really an out-of-the-world experience. We have visited various religious places in the past as in a childhood, and we have often have those memories of closed areas, confined limits, congested areas, and people just jostling to get over each other to reach the temple corridor. But coming here to Ujjain now is entirely new experience. You have broad pathways, and even if there is a stream of devotees on any given day, I am very sure that this new corridor now has that capacity to ensure that every devotee gets ample space, ample time to have a darshan, sit down, wait for its turn, and there is a lot in terms of facilities. So lot many changing rooms, restrooms, facilities for clean water, facilities of new toilet areas. So in that sense, coming here would be a darshan in an entirely new sense. And in Indian tradition, we have often seen that it was generally left to the business interest, business communities, big states and other people to actually renovate and build the temple areas. But now it seems it's a task which the BJP governments have actually taken up to themselves, and it clearly comes in from the initiative and the margdarshan from the Prime Minister, and that's the reason why we have seen unimaginable renovation in Kashi Vishwanath. Now comparing to it, I think Ujjain doing this large scale work, acquiring the area, 47 acres of area has been acquired. Right. That would have been a pretty easy task as compared to Kashi Vishwanath, where we saw a bit of initial rounds of tension also when land was acquired. Right. But in case of Ujjain, everything has gone peaceful. People have cooperated, and that's the reason why it has been done at a fast speed without any controversies.
Absolutely. I mean, the Kashi project is on a completely different level, even if not in size comparable to the Ujjain complex, because of the complexities involved in getting that refurbished. Pranshu, thanks a lot for bringing us the updates from there. We're yet to hear from the Prime Minister, but I'm tossing it over to my colleague Anand, who's joining you now.
Namaste and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. Prime Minister Narendra Modi perhaps leading the cause for the revival of our civilizational ethos, be it the Somnath Temple in Gujarat, be it the Kedarnath Temple, Kedarnath Dham and the Char Dham Yatra in Uttarakhand, or be it the Kashi Vishwanath complex, be it the Baidyanath towards the eastern part of our country, Bihar, Jharkhand, that region, or be it even as far as the Ayodhya Ram Janmabhoomi and the Shilanyas is concerned. But this is bigger, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the, again, 12 Jyotirlingas of Shiva. This is the seat of Shaivism in the heart of our country. This place, geographically, ladies and gentlemen, is called the Nabhi or navel of earth. This is Ujjain, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi is speaking at Mahakal Lok.
Prabhu, Mahakal Maharudra, Mahakal Namostute. उज्जैन की पवित्र पुण्य भूमि पर इस अविस्मरणीय कार्यक्रम में उपस्थित देश भर से आए सभी चरण वंद्य संतगण, सम्माननीय साधु सन्यासीगण, मध्य प्रदेश के राज्यपाल श्रीमान मंगूभाई पटेल, छत्तीसगढ़ की राज्यपाल बहन अनसुईया उइके जी, झारखंड के राज्यपाल श्रीमान रमेश बैस जी, मध्य प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री भाई शिवराज सिंह चौहान जी, केंद्रीय मंत्रिमंडल के मेरे सहयोगी, राज्य सरकार के मंत्रीगण, सांसदगण, विधायकगण, भगवान महाकाल के सभी कृपा पात्र श्रद्धालुगण, देवी और सज्जनों, जय महाकाल। उज्जैन की ये ऊर्जा, ये उत्साह, अवंतिका की ये आभा, ये अद्भुतता, ये आनंद, महाकाल की ये महिमा, ये महात्म्य, महाकाल लोक में लौकिक कुछ भी नहीं है। शंकर के सानिध्य में साधारण कुछ भी नहीं है। सब कुछ अलौकिक है, असाधारण है, अविस्मरणीय है, अविश्वसनीय है। मैं आज महसूस कर रहा हूं, हमारी तपस्या और आस्था से जब महाकाल प्रसन्न होते हैं तो उनके आशीर्वाद से ऐसे ही भव्य स्वरूप का निर्माण होता है। और महाकाल का आशीर्वाद जब मिलता है तो काल की रेखाएं मिट जाती है, समय की सीमाएं सिमट जाती है और अनंत के अवसर प्रस्फुटित हो जाते हैं। अंत से अनंत यात्रा आरंभ हो जाती है। महाकाल लोक की ये भव्यता भी समय की सीमाओं से परे आने वाली कई पीढ़ियों को अलौकिक दिव्यता के दर्शन कराएगी, भारत की सांस्कृतिक और आध्यात्मिक चेतना को ऊर्जा देगी। मैं इस अद्भुत अवसर पर राजाधिराज महाकाल के चरणों में शत शत नमन करता हूं। मैं आप सभी को देश और दुनिया में महाकाल के सभी भक्तों को हृदय से बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। विशेष रूप से भाई शिवराज सिंह चौहान और उनकी सरकार, उनका मैं हृदय से अभिनंदन करता हूं, जो लगातार इतने समर्पण से इस सेवा यज्ञ में लगे हुए हैं। साथ ही मैं मंदिर ट्रस्ट से जुड़े सभी लोगों का, संतों और विद्वानों का भी आदरपूर्वक धन्यवाद करता हूं, जिनके सहयोग से इस प्रयास को सफल किया है। साथियों, महाकाल की नगरी उज्जैन के बारे में हमारे यहां कहा गया है, प्रलयो न बाधते, प्रलयो न बाधते तत्र महाकालपुरी, अर्थात महाकाल की नगरी प्रलय के प्रहार से भी मुक्त है। हजारों वर्ष पूर्व जब भारत का भौगोलिक स्वरूप